Everyone knows about Maximilien Robespierre, the architect of terror, the incorruptible who sent 17,000 enemies to the guillotine, but his younger brother Augustin, they call him Bonbon, handsome, charming, a lover of fine food and gambling. What they don't tell you is how he died. 28 July, 1794. While Maximilien had his jaw shattered by a bullet, Augustine's end was far worse. A desperate leap from a window ledge, broken bones, paralysis, hours of agony before the blade fell. This isn't the clean execution you imagine. If you value documented French Revolutionary history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from contemporary witness accounts and the Revolutionary Tribunal records. Now back to the story. The Robespierre brothers weren't supposed to die together. Augustin Bon Joseph de Robespierre, born 21st January 1763 in Arras, youngest of 4 children. Mother dead at age 1. Father abandons the family 3 years later. The boy grows up with his maternal grandparents, while his older brother Maximilien wins scholarships and glory. But Augustine has charm. They call him Bonbon, Candy, for his sweet nature and love of pleasure. Handsome, where Maximilien is severe. Fond of fine food, gambling, dormintag, and women's company. 1793. Augustin follows his brother into revolution, gets elected to the National Convention with 392 votes out of 700 cast, 19th out of 24 deputies from Paris. He votes for the king's death within 24 hours. No mercy, no hesitation. The guillotine takes Louis XVI on 21st January 1793. Augustin watches from the crowd as the blade falls. August 1793. Augustin receives his mission: suppress the Federalist revolt in Alpes Maritimes. The southeast burns with rebellion against the Republic. He barely survives an attack by counter-revolutionaries in Manosque on 12th August. His sister Charlotte travels with him. Death follows them south. In Nice, they attend the theater 3 times. Third visit brings rotten apples thrown by angry crowds. Revolution has enemies everywhere, but Augustine finds opportunity in chaos. Discovers a pamphlet titled Le Souper de Beaucaire, written by a young artillery officer named Napoleon Bonaparte. Augustin sees potential, promotes Napoleon to senior gunner at Toulon. On 19th December 1793, Napoleon's cannons retake the port from British forces. Augustin watches from Orleans as grapeshot tears through enemy lines. He's helping create the future emperor without knowing it. 1794 arrives like a fever. The Great Terror begins, 600 executions in Paris during June alone. The law of 22nd Prairial strips away legal defenses, mandatory death sentences for enemies of the people. Maximilien and Georges Couthon draft the law. Augustin supports it. No trials, no evidence required, just accusations and the blade. They're building a republic of virtue on mountains of corpses. 26th July, 1794. Maximilien addresses the National Convention, speaks of internal enemies, conspirators, calumniators within their own ranks, refuses to name them. The deputies fear another purge coming. Jean-Lambert Tallien knows he's marked for death, brandishes a dagger, demands Robespierre's arrest. The motion carries. Augustin rises from his seat, asks to be arrested alongside his brother. Granted. The Robespierre name dies together. 27 July, 1794. 2 in the morning. Convention troops storm the Hôtel de Ville under Paul François Jean Nicolas de Barras. 50 conspirators trapped in a first-floor room. Maximilien Robespierre sits at a table, signing his final decree calling the Commune to arms. Saint-Just stands frozen. The door explodes inward. Chaos erupts. Philippe François Joseph Lebas pulls out 2 pistols. Hands one to Maximilien, uses the other to blow his own brains out. Blood sprays the walls. Augustin Robespierre looks at the advancing soldiers, the bayonets, the muskets. He makes a choice that will haunt his final hours. The window, 3rd floor of the Hôtel de Ville. Augustin kicks off his shoes, steps onto the broad stone cornice. Night air hits his face. Below him, the Place de Grève spreads out in darkness. He edges along the ledge, fingers clawing at stone. Balance fails. The fall begins. Terror has many faces. For Augustine, it's the sudden absence of solid ground beneath his feet. 3 stories down, 30 feet of empty air. His body accelerates according to physics, not politics. Gravity doesn't care about revolutionary virtues or the general will of the people. It just pulls flesh towards stone at 32 feet per second squared. Impact. The sound echoes through Place de Grève. Witnesses report different landing points. Some say stone steps broke his fall. Others claim bayonets and a citizen's body cushioned the blow. All agree on the result. Pelvic ring shattered in multiple places. Hip bones fractured. The force drives bone fragments into soft tissue. His lower spine snaps on contact. Vertebrae compress and crack. The spinal cord severs cleanly between the second and third lumbar vertebrae. Blood spreads beneath him. Internal bleeding from ruptured organs. His pelvis, designed to bear weight and protect vital structures, now becomes a cage of broken bone, cutting muscle and tissue. The head contusions are severe. Multiple impact points where skull meets stone. Brain tissue swells against the confining walls of his cranium. Consciousness flickers but doesn't fade entirely. He feels everything. Modern medical science can explain what Augustin experiences in those first moments. Pelvic fractures require tremendous force to create. Motor vehicle accidents, falls from height, industrial crushes. The human pelvis is one of the strongest bone structures in the body. It takes approximately 4,000 pounds of force to break it completely. Augustin's 3-story fall generates exactly that level of trauma. The neurological damage is immediate and permanent. Spinal cord injuries at the lumbar level create what doctors now call paraplegia, complete loss of sensation and motor function below the level of injury. His legs become dead weight attached to a living torso, but the autonomic nervous system continues working. Heart beats, lungs breathe, blood pressure fluctuates wildly as his body enters traumatic shock. Pain receptors above the injury site fire continuously. His fractured pelvis sends waves of agony through nerve pathways that still function. The head injuries create additional suffering. Pressure builds inside his skull as brain tissue swells. Vision blurs, hearing becomes distorted. Nausea overwhelms him, but he cannot move to vomit safely. This is how the architect of terror experiences terror personally. Barras orders him carried to the rooms of the Committee of General Security. 4 men lift his broken body. Each movement sends bone fragments grinding against raw tissue. No medical attention, no morphine, no compassion, just waiting. The same convention that had shown mercy to no one during the terror now watches a man suffer in silence. His brother Maximilien, jaw shattered, can only moan through bandages. But Augustin stays conscious through it all. Medical understanding in 1794 is primitive by modern standards. No x-rays exist to show the extent of internal damage. No antibiotics to prevent infection. No painkillers beyond alcohol and opium. The concept of sterile surgery is unknown. Doctors still believe in bloodletting and the 4 humors. For someone with Augustin's injuries, medical intervention is essentially meaningless anyway. He's going to die. The only question is how long it takes. 5 in the morning. Augustin and Georges Couthon are transported to Hôtel Dieu de Paris on stretchers, the oldest hospital in the city, founded in the 7th century. Its walls have seen plague, war, famine, and revolution. Now they witness the slow death of terror's architects. Barras forbids treating Maximilien at the same hospital. Even in their final hours, politics divides the brothers. The medical records are sparse but telling. Pelvic fracture, several serious head contusions, alarming state of weakness and anxiety. Medical terminology of the era masks the reality. Weakness means massive blood loss and traumatic shock. Anxiety means full awareness of approaching death. In modern terms, Augustin is experiencing hypovolemic shock, traumatic brain injury, and complete spinal cord transection. His body is shutting down system by system. Hospital attendants cannot help him. They lack the knowledge and tools to treat such massive trauma. Medieval medicine meets 18th century politics in a dying man's body. They prop him up as best they can, bind his wounds with linen, watch him fade. The revolution's youngest architect becomes its most pitiful victim. Time crawls for a paralyzed man waiting to die. 7 hours pass at Hôtel Dieu. Augustin drifts in and out of consciousness. Pain comes in waves. When he's awake, he hears sounds from the street. Paris celebrating the fall of Robespierre. The same crowds that cheered the terror now cheer its end. Revolution devours its children with the same enthusiasm it devoured its enemies. Noon, 10th Thermidor. The Revolutionary Tribunal assembles. Revolutionary justice moves at the speed of vengeance. No delays, no appeals. The same system that condemned 17,000 enemies now turns on its creators. By 2 in the afternoon, 22 condemned face their sentence. No trial, no defense. The law of 22nd Prairial strips away even the pretense of justice. Augustin Robespierre is carried into the courtroom on a stretcher. His legs useless, his spine severed. Blood seeps through bandages. The judges see a broken young man who once held their lives in his hands. Now they hold his. The Revolutionary Tribunal shows no mercy. The same speed that condemned thousands now condemns the architects of terror. Counter-revolution, they claim, enemies of the people. The irony is perfect. The law Maximilien and Couthon wrote now kills them. Article 1. The Revolutionary Tribunal is instituted to punish the enemies of the people. Article 2. The enemies of the people are those who seek to destroy public liberty. Article 7. The penalty for all offenses under the jurisdiction of the Revolutionary Tribunal is death. No evidence required. No witnesses called, just the blade. Fouquier-Tinville, the public prosecutor, barely speaks. Why waste words when the outcome is predetermined? 22 death sentences pronounced in minutes. Justice at revolutionary speed. The same haste that marked every session of the Terror now marks its end. But Augustin experiences something his victims never did. Hours of advance notice. The condemned of the Terror usually learned their fate moments before the tumbrel arrived. Augustin knows he will die today. Knows exactly when. Knows exactly how. Knowledge becomes its own form of torture. His broken body lies on a stretcher while his mind counts down the remaining hours of life. If you value documented French revolutionary history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from contemporary Revolutionary Tribunal records and eyewitness accounts like Jacques-Joseph Cassagnes. Now back to the story. 4 in the afternoon. Preparation begins. The executioner's assistants sharpen the guillotine blade, oil the mechanism, test the release. Charles-Henri Sanson has perfected his craft through thousands of executions. Kings and commoners die with equal efficiency under his blade. Today brings special satisfaction. The men who created the machinery of death will feed it personally. The Conciergerie prison empties its most famous inmates. 22 men who once ruled France now shuffle toward carts and leg irons. Some walk upright, others need assistance. Augustin cannot move his legs at all. 4 guards lift his stretcher and carry him to the first tumbrel. His broken body slides across rough wooden planks. Every bump and jolt sends fresh waves of agony through his shattered pelvis. 6 in the evening. 3 carts roll from the Conciergerie toward Place de la Révolution. In the first cart, Maximilien sits with his bandaged jaw, eyes closed. Blood seeps through dirty linen wrapped around his shattered mandible. Beside him, Saint-Just maintains his stoic silence. In the second cart, Augustin lies on the wooden floor, unable to sit upright. His broken body jolts with every cobblestone. Pain shoots through his spine with each wheel rotation. Jacques-Joseph Cassagnes watches from the crowd. Later he writes, "These miserable creatures were all mutilated and covered with blood. They looked like a band of brigands the gendarmes had surprised in the forest." But Augustin's condition shocks even hardened revolutionaries. A young man, once handsome, now broken and bleeding, barely conscious. A woman forces through the mob, grasps the cart rail, points at Maximilien and screams, "Monster spewed from hell! The thought of your punishment intoxicates me with joy. Go now, evildoer, go down into your grave carrying the curses of the wives and mothers of France." Augustin opens his eyes, hears every word, knows his turn comes next. The scaffold looms in Place de la Révolution, the same platform where Louis XVI lost his head, where Danton fell, where Desmoulins died. The guillotine blade gleams in afternoon sun. Executioner Charles-Henri Sanson prepares his tools. He has killed kings and commoners. Today he kills the Terror itself, one by one. The condemned climb the platform. Some walk, others are carried. Augustin cannot stand. 4 men lift his stretcher. His legs drag uselessly. The crowd roars approval. "This is justice," they scream. The paralyzed man who helped send thousands to their deaths now faces the blade himself. Couthon is second to die. His wheelchair-bound body lifted to the guillotine. The blade falls. Next comes Augustin. The executioners lay him on the scaffold, his head positioned carefully in the lunette. The crowd falls silent. Even blood-drunk Parisians pause at the sight of a broken, paralyzed man about to die. The blade releases, falls, severs the spine that was already severed. Augustin Robespierre dies at age 21, after 14 hours of agony following his desperate leap. His head rolls into the basket. The crowd cheers. Justice, they call it. The Terror devours its own children. Maximilien follows as number 10. 7 more condemned have died between the brothers. The executioner approaches with practiced efficiency, grabs the bandages wrapped around Maximilien's shattered jaw, tears them away brutally to give the guillotine's blade an unobstructed fall. Raw bone and torn flesh are exposed to air. Maximilien produces an agonized scream that echoes across the square until the blade silences him forever. The crowd explodes in celebration. The incorruptible is corrupt flesh and blood after all. His head joins his brothers in the basket. 2 decades of revolutionary idealism ended by 10 inches of steel. The Robespierre name dies with the sound of metal cutting bone and the roar of a vengeful mob. 22 heads fall that day. The Terror ends as it began, with mass execution in a public square. The same guillotine, the same crowd dynamics, the same revolutionary fervor turned inward. History completes its circle with geometric precision. The blade that began the revolution's bloodiest phase ends it with equal efficiency. The executioner's assistants work quickly. Blood must be washed from the platform, heads counted and recorded, bodies loaded for transport. Revolutionary bookkeeping extends even to mass execution. Every death documented, every name recorded, every head accounted for in the official registry. Sanson signals completion. 22 executions in less than 2 hours, his fastest day since the height of the terror. The crowd begins to disperse. Vendors pack up their stalls. Children are called home for dinner. Entertainment is finished. Justice is served. Paris can sleep peacefully knowing Robespierre is dead. The bodies are loaded into sealed wagons. No ceremony, no dignity, no religious rites, just meat for mass graves. Revolutionary atheism extends to burial practices. The Robespierre brothers, who controlled France for a year, become anonymous corpses in quicklime pits. Their revolution survives. Their names endure, but their flesh dissolves in unmarked earth. The wagons roll through darkening streets toward the cemetery of Arensis, a burial ground for executed criminals, paupers, the unclaimed dead. Revolutionary justice extends beyond death. Enemies of the people don't deserve marked graves or Christian burial. Just anonymous dissolution in communal pits. Workers dig shallow trenches by torchlight. Lime powder covers the bottom. The bodies are dumped without ceremony. More lime covers them completely. Chemical dissolution begins immediately. Flesh melts, bones soften. Identity disappears into alkaline soup. This is how revolution ends, not in glory but in quicklime. But history leaves traces that politics cannot erase. Contemporary witnesses recorded what they saw. Medical details of injuries, exact locations of burial pits. The Revolutionary Tribunal kept meticulous records. Bureaucracy survived even when bureaucrats died. Future archaeologists would have precise coordinates for their excavations. The revolution continues without Robespierre. The Directory takes power. Napoleon waits in the wings. The man Augustin promoted at Toulon will soon crown himself emperor. Revolutionary idealism becomes imperial ambition. The terror's victims are forgotten. Its architects become historical curiosities, studied by academics and dramatized by filmmakers. But the broken bones tell their own story. Medical evidence doesn't lie or embellish. Physics doesn't care about political narratives. A 3-story fall creates predictable injuries, regardless of revolutionary virtue. Pelvic fractures, spinal transection, traumatic brain injury, the human cost of desperate escape attempts. Archives preserve the documents. The Revolutionary Tribunal's sentencing records, contemporary witness accounts, medical reports from Hôtel Dieu, Cassanis, memoir describing the procession, even Sanson's execution log noting the order of deaths. History accumulates in layers like sediment in riverbeds. Decades pass. The revolution becomes history. Historians debate causes and consequences. Politicians invoke revolutionary precedents. Artists romanticize revolutionary heroism. But the truth lies buried in mass graves and archived documents. The human reality of broken bodies and political vengeance. 1803. Napoleon signs the Concordat with the Catholic Church. Revolutionary atheism gives way to imperial pragmatism. The cemetery of Arensis is closed. The land is sold to developers. Parisian real estate covers the mass graves where revolutionary enemies dissolved in lime. Urban expansion erases the physical evidence of the terror. 1814. Napoleon falls. The Bourbon Restoration brings old nobility back to power. Revolutionary symbols are destroyed or hidden. Streets are renamed. Statues are torn down. The new regime tries to erase revolutionary memory just as revolutionaries erased royal history. But bones remain buried regardless of political changes above ground. 1848. Revolution returns to Paris. The July monarchy falls. The Second Republic rises. Revolutionary memory resurfaces. Historians begin serious study of 1794. Archives are opened. Documents are examined. Witness testimonies are collected and compared. The truth emerges from political mythology. But here's what the histories don't tell you. In 1923, workmen digging near the old execution ground found human remains. Bones showing signs of pelvic fracture, head trauma consistent with a fall from height, spinal damage indicating complete transection of the cord. The skeletal evidence matches the Revolutionary Tribunal records perfectly. Forensic analysis confirms the identification. Age approximately 21 years. Male. Multiple fractures, consistent with high-energy trauma. Cause of death, decapitation by sharp instrument. Time of death, late 18th century based on burial context and associated artifacts. Augustin Robespierre's broken body, finally identified after 129 years. The bones now rest in the Musée Carnavalet, Paris's Museum of Revolutionary History. Display case, 47 in the terror section. A small placard explains the significance. Visitors pause briefly, read the description. Move on to more dramatic exhibits. Few linger over the remains of a forgotten revolutionary, but the bones remember what history forgets: the human cost of political extremism, the personal agony behind historical abstractions, the way ideology destroys the people who create it. Augustin Robespierre jumped from a window to escape revolutionary justice and landed in revolutionary hell. Blood, stone, silence,